What's going on, everybody? Matthew back again, this time for a TV review. Today we're reviewing Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 1, titled Elven Kings Under the Sky. Let's get into it. We start with an orc carrying a crown and are introduced to Sauron, who looks very different. We then cut to an establishing shot after we've already had an interior shot, then straight back to the interior shot. So you know we're off to a good start. For some reason, Sauron has to convince the orcs to follow him when he's already a general of Morgoth, according to the first half of the Silmarillion that I've read. I haven't read the second half, so it's possible that there's context that I'm missing, but I did find that strange. They all turn on Sauron, including the other character Ada, I think that's how you pronounce his name. They proceed to stab him to death, and you can call this a nitpick, but not a single orc decided to stab him in the face, which I found to be strange and not very realistic, considering the brutality of the orcs. They decide to follow Ada with no problem at all, and it begs the question, what is it about Ada that orcs love so much? Is Ada as powerful as Sauron, or of the same rank? What did Ada do to have the loyalty of the orcs over Sauron? We then witness Sauron become black goo that regenerates over time by consuming different life forms, which would have been pretty cool if it had been in a different series or program. Maybe something more science fiction than fantasy. I have to admit it was pretty cool seeing it move around and even breathing at one point before attaching itself to that woman's cart before killing her. Like I said, it doesn't work here because it doesn't match Lord of the Rings in my opinion, but it did look cool on its own. After consuming the innocent woman, he now looks as we know him to look, and he sets out on his revenge tour, before meeting people escaping an orc attack it seems. And here we're introduced to a regretful Sauron. Why is he so regretful? And is it all an act, or are they trying to have us sympathize with him? That certainly won't work given the fact he just consumed an innocent woman to death. There's been talk of them trying to give Sauron the Walter White treatment, where they're going to try to show the descent of a good person to an evil one, which I'm not really interested in seeing, and it seems kind of desperate. There's also talk of a troll that's supposed to be a Mike Ehrmantraut of the show, but we haven't seen that character yet, so we'll have to wait. Sauron betrays the old man, steals his necklace, then survives the attack of the sea beast, to then meet Galadriel on the raft. We then cut to the present where Galadriel is chasing Elrond for the rings. And it's here that we're introduced to Gil-galad, played by Benjamin Walker, who I hate to say it, but is overacting his ass off. I'm not sure if he's being directed to ham it up or not, but ham it up he did. The overexpressive arm movements and way of speaking is laughable, and I hope the guy gets a better project in the future that can maybe highlight his talents, but this isn't it. And it's here that the sets become all too noticeable. It is so obvious that they're on sets because of the obvious blue screen. One thing that made Peter Jackson's movies so great was the real-world locations, and when they did have to use sets, they were exceptionally made and never took me out of the movies for a second. That is not the case here at all. We have to talk about the lighting. Daytime in this show looks awful. It's oversaturated, and it's trying way too hard to impress or to invoke a beautiful world, because it just comes off as fake and takes me out of the show as much as the bad sets. I can't stand the visual direction of this show, especially when you have Peter Jackson's work to go off of and compare it to. Let's move to Gandalf and the Harfoots. We meet them walking through the desert when they notice they're being followed, and when you know it, it turns out to be Nori's friend Poppy, which anyone could have seen from a mile away when they were waiting on them to trip on that rope. Which, by the way, I never saw anyone pull the rope to make it trippable in the first place. So how did Poppy trip over it? Call it a nitpick if you want, but it was very noticeable. They are in need of direction, and Poppy randomly remembers a piece of paper regarding a song that leads their way out of the desert in a very convenient and ham-fisted way that was almost a blink and you'll miss it event. Moving back to the elves, Elrond has run off with the rings because he's correct in assuming that it's all a scheme by Sauron to gain power. He takes him to another elf at the Grey Havens, named Cerdon, who doesn't look like an elf at all, and we have to talk about the casting of elves in this show, because it has a history of casting people that don't look like elves, and this man is the best example. In fact, I don't think we ever see his ears, so without that, he absolutely just looks like a man, and not an elf at all. Also, I don't think I've ever seen an elf with a beard, which really goes a long way in making him look like a man instead of an elf. He decides to take the rings into the ocean and drop them to the depths, when there's a strange splash in the water near his boat, causing him to drop the bag before deciding to inspect it and the rings inside. Why did this need to happen? Why couldn't he have just checked the bag without that splash? Is there more to be revealed involving that splash? We'll have to wait to find out. It's around this time that we see many elves, and a few of them happen to be black. Now, if you know Tolkien lore at all, and I'm no expert myself, but I do know that the elves are children of starlight, and were made and lived before the creation of the sun, giving them a pale complexion having lived in darkness, which the books do express. So deciding to make some elves black is what the showrunners would call inclusive, but I would call unnecessary. Because you can have black and brown humans among the race of men, which is in line with Tolkien lore. Making some of the elves black goes to serve the showrunner's savior complex more than the lore of Tolkien or its fans. And we finally end with Sauron leaving Mordor and arriving at Celebrimbor's location, which begs the question, why did Sauron even go to Mordor in the first place? He ends season 1 there, and it turns out all he did was willingly get captured and tortured to meet the man that betrayed him at the beginning, just to convince him of his being freed, just to immediately leave. Maybe there's more that I missed or am not aware of, but I found that to be strange as well. The episode ends, and we're shown what awaits in the future of this season, where we see the Harfoot Poppy about to kiss either a female Harfoot or female dwarf. Either way is lesbianism, which if anyone knows anything about Tolkien, he was a Christian and obviously wouldn't be down with that, and to make that decision and then to show it off in the compilation is a slap in the face to his memory. These people think they can take his work and twist it and contort it to be what they want it to be, which is just wrong and disrespectful, but they don't care. The material is just being used by them to push what they wish to be real, because they lack the talent to create anything a quarter as good as what Tolkien created. But anyway, guys, that's the review. I'll be doing a review for each episode, so be on the lookout for that, and let me know in the comments below what you thought of the episode. Please subscribe and leave a like, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy, guys.